When the word RPG comes to my mind, it is not a rocket launcher, but it is two great video game franchises, Mass Effect and Fallout, which are two of the most popular action RPG games in the world. Fallout takes place in a post-apocalyptic world after a nuclear war. Players must navigate through this world, create their own characters, explore cities and towns, and complete quests. While Mass Effect is set in space, allowing players to explore the galaxy and take control of Commander Shepard, a protagonist that the player can customize. Fallout also is the older franchise in the pair, with the first game releasing in 1997, a decade before Mass Effect arrived on the scene. Back then, Fallout was a game like other RPGs at the time, with a top-down camera angle, real-time gameplay, but turn-based combat. Fallout wouldn't become popular until 2007 when Bethesda Softworks acquired the rights to the franchise from the original owner Interplay Entertainment while Fallout 3 was in development hell. And then in 2008, when Fallout 3 came out, it was a totally different game to the previous entries in every single way possible. Bethesda turned the third game into an open world action RPG played mainly in first person with the option to do third person as well. Despite a handful of people who played the original games being against the idea of Fallout becoming an action RPG, Fallout had changed for the better. The game had the best open world in the series. The environment of the capital wasteland feels empty and dreary. Because of the flat terrain, I can frequently see what is ahead of me. But the trip there will be lonely and sometimes dreadful, since the occasional attacks by a horrifyingly mutated monstrosity could happen, and there is a huge chance that you may not even be prepared for the attack, and despite that, the capital wasteland's emptiness had a peaceful quality about it. Additionally, the wasteland's tone is masterfully managed. Fallout 3, as well as the other games in the series, parody 50s and 60s America in almost everything, including the politics and culture of the era. This implies that among the nuclear debris might be found a lot of humour and wit. While the other games tend to veer too far towards being either extremely serious or overly hilarious, in my opinion, Fallout 3 builds the perfect bridge between humour and seriousness. It's difficult to create something like that, but that highlights how impressive Fallout 3 really is. Fallout 3 isn't a perfect game. No game is, to be honest, but Fallout 3 hasn't aged quite well as the other games with clunky controls and combat and visuals that really need a massive overhaul. Yet, despite the clunky gameplay, one thing Fallout 3 did was create an innovative combat feature inspired by the aim shot mechanic from its predecessors. And I don't know how they did it, but it worked so well, and that is VATS, which stands for Voltec Assisted Targeting System, and is a key part of the Fallout 3 combat, and combines the best of turn-based and real-time combat. It gives you a significant advantage in combat. It allows you to hit a target precisely, and it gives you extra damage when in real time. There is a disadvantage though, which is you can't take avoiding action since the AI controls the character. And also the system requires AP or action points, which means if you have been sprinting and you run into an enemy, you can't use VATS until you have more AP. But the combat mechanic is really good and it is best in this game in my opinion compared to New Vegas or 4. Fallout 3 overall is unmatched in tone, humour and setting compared to the other Fallout games. Shortly after Fallout 3, Bethesda decided to partner with Obsidian Entertainment to develop the spin-off New Vegas. New Vegas would release in 2010 for the PS3, Xbox 360 and PC, and although it wasn't seen as good as Fallout 3 in the eyes of the critics, it grew to become a cult classic among those who played it. And I have to say that Fallout New Vegas was a good game and improved on some of the flaws that Fallout 3 had, such as the combat and gameplay. However, New Vegas leans to the more humorous side, although it does feel a bit serious due to its western cowboy style gameplay. But the dialogue and storyline is mainly meant to be more humorous, and that is not a bad thing, but usually in a post-apocalyptic setting you would at least balance the humour with some seriousness. The game hasn't aged well either, although compared to Fallout 3 the visuals look a lot nicer. The game also doesn't run particularly well on PC or the PS3, with the Xbox 360 version being the best one to work, and with stuff like that going on, I think a remake not just for New Vegas but 3 as well would make more sense than choosing to do a next gen update for Fallout 4, which still looks visually stunning for a 2015 game. Speaking of Fallout 4, The successor to Fallout 3 has impressive gameplay. Basically, Fallout 4 can easily be compared with other shooters, and the combat was one of Fallout 3's and New Vegas' flaws. Fallout 4 also has settlement building, which is a good addition to the game, a heavy reliance on crafting and finding resources that make this game a bit more satisfying than the older games. I know a lot of people have been riled up because of what happened at launch and the addition of a voice protagonist, which to me is not a bad choice. I know it may take away some of that imagination and immersion, but it just feels more of a movie. And a lot of RPGs have gone the extra mile to make sure you feel like you're in a movie. But I really don't care if the character is voiced or not, because in Fallout I'm more focused on the gameplay than a game like Mass Effect where I'm focused on gameplay and story simultaneously. And Mass Effect has a more fleshed out story, while Fallout has a random scenario where you have to find your father, child or whatever, meaning that paying attention to the story isn't going to take anything away from you in Fallout like it is in Mass Effect or another story driven game. Fallout 4 is a good game, and it may lack some of the great RPG mechanics that are seen in the other RPG games, but it's still a great open world game to play. Overall, I ranked Fallout 4 as number 1 because I felt that the gameplay in previous Fallout games was not up to scratch, and Fallout 4 is a great action shooter, especially if you've played games like the Outer Worlds, Dying Light or the Metro games. Fallout 3 comes second because everything about the RPG elements and gameplay except for the combat is great. The story is meh, but I loved the atmosphere of the Capital Wasteland, and from the music you could just tell how frightening and spooky it was, and it felt more realistic than the other games. Fallout New Vegas comes out in third, and while this is everyone's favourite, I'm not afraid to have an unpopular opinion, and this is one of them. I'm not gonna lie, Fallout New Vegas is a good game, but compared to Fallout 4 and 3, it just doesn't give me the same feel. And while the combat is better in New Vegas than it is in 3, it just is not as enjoyable, with the game being quite unstable on PS3 and PC. And the fact that the side quests are not that interesting like Fallout 4 or 3. So yeah, this is just my opinion. Everyone is entitled to their opinion here. Unlike Fallout, Mass Effect is a linear game instead of an open world environment. Mass Effect is set in space and in the far future of the 22nd century. Mass Effect has taken inspirations from many great sci-fi TV shows and movies, such as Blade Runner, Firefly, Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, and Star Trek. Especially Star Wars, as BioWare worked on Knights of the Old Republic, a key inspiration and formula BioWare decided to reuse in Mass Effect, and also chose to splice some other great sci-fi media together with the game's own ideas. The first Mass Effect landed in 2007 as an Xbox 360 exclusive. The game was met with critical acclaim and love from players and critics alike. And I have to say that the first game was an absolute blockbuster of a game. It is the one in the series that is a personal favourite to me. And although it has its flaws such as clunky gameplay and a difficult to drive vehicle, ultimately that is outweighed by the brilliantly written story and compelling characters. Mass Effect really captured the mysterious and intriguing tone with Saren and the truth about the Reapers completely shrouded in secrecy, and it brought that feeling that you were alone in the game, that only you knew what was true, particularly when you meet the Council and notice how they try every excuse to not believe what you witnessed until it's too late. And the first game did all that excellently to give us a view that is not too dissimilar to what is happening in the real world. Due to the success of the first Mass Effect game, BioWare decided to get working on the sequel. One of the first things BioWare said about Mass Effect 2 was that it was going to be an Empire Strikes Back style sequel. In other words, the sequel was going to have a darker tone than the first game, and Mass Effect 2 was exactly that. When Mass Effect 2 released in 2010, it was a timed Xbox 360 exclusive before reaching the PS3 in 2011, but in between those releases were 4 DLCs that were released: Lair of the Shadow Broker, Overlord, Zahid and Kasumi, with Arrival arriving 2 months after the PS3 version was released. And in my opinion, they were some of the best DLCs I enjoyed. Lair of the Shadow Broker was a great adventure with your old friend Liara, and the DLC finally answered my questions about the Shadow Broker, because I always wondered about who or what was the Shadow Broker when many of the characters mentioned it in Mass Effect 1. The other DLCs were fun too. I enjoyed the heist with Kasumi. I thought Zahid's mission was a bit average but still fun, but when I got to the suicide mission I went crazy. Everything from action sequences, cutscenes, dialogue and music made this my favourite mission in the trilogy, and the choices you made were more significant than they were in the first game. If you chose the wrong person for a job, then that decision would affect you quite badly for the events ahead. Also, I like how the game ended with us seeing the Reapers approaching the Milky Way galaxy from dark space, giving us the perfect cliffhanger ending before Mass Effect 3. In March 2012, Mass Effect 3 launched globally on the PS3, Xbox 360, PC and even the Wii U. It was the first game of the Mass Effect series to hit platforms simultaneously, and the gameplay is better than the first two, and the story was good up until the ending. Now, I'm not going to rant about the ending, but the overall story was changed over the development, and some of the cut content would have made the game way better if they chose to take their time and release it later. Examples of cut content include Javik and the Eden Prime mission being more integral to the plot rather than being just a DLC mission. Javik would have been the one to reveal things about the Catalyst, and also we would have seen a new character who is a Spectre partner to the Vermeer's survivor. And we would see the partner attempt to kill Javik, and the result of the mission would have put Shepard through hell, since Udina would have stripped them of the Spectre status due to Cerberus framing Shepard for civilian casualties. No different to what Saren did to Anderson. Also, we could have witnessed more development of Kai Len, as he is kind of a double agent working for Cerberus but pretending to be an Alliance agent. Udina gets more development on how he helped Cerberus by claiming to the Vermeer survivor that Shepard was working for Cerberus after Eden Prime. And the Cerberus coup would have come after Frezia, where the Prothean AI would have been found. And to me, it made more sense, as they would have to take over the Citadel to use the Crucible. And in my opinion, this cut content would have made the third game even better. And if EA decide to remake Mass Effect 3 again, then they should restore some of that cut content and remake it in a way that is still faithful to the original game. But Mass Effect 3 is a great game anyway, and the cut content really looked interesting and would have fixed Kai Len for some, but overall the game is still enjoyable. However, in terms of rankings, I still rank Mass Effect 1 as the number one because the story, atmosphere and soundtrack are up my street. Mass Effect 3 is second because the gameplay and the run up till the end is an emotional roller coaster, and the DLCs kept me well occupied. Mass Effect 2 comes last because the game felt more of an action shooter with little RPG mechanics compared to the first and third, and it was boring until I played the final mission and DLCs. In conclusion, Fallout and Mass Effect may be very different, as one is an open world game and another is a linear game, but the one that is the reigning king of the action RPG genre is Mass Effect, and I'm not saying it out of bias. I'm saying it because Mass Effect is a linear story driven game that should catch the eye of those who have played Sony's single player games, like Uncharted and Last of Us. And Fallout is a good franchise as well, with good gameplay and combat if you talk about Fallout 4. And some interesting ideas such as a retro futuristic tone and setting, and some humour as well as some good RPG mechanics. However, if you've been playing open world games like me, then you would know that these games can easily get boring. And I've been noticing that people are falling out of love with open world games because it has just become the same emptiness, and they don't have the originality they did when they first started. So therefore, most gamers turn to linear story driven games like Mass Effect. But ultimately, Mass Effect has everything that if you're a gamer who never played it before but have played one of the PlayStation exclusive games, then Mass Effect should be an absolute must play. However, Fallout and Mass Effect both are great RPGs in their own way. The main reason is that they each offer gamers an escape into another world filled with different choices, settings, consequences and unforgettable stories and experiences. Both franchises have vast lore, great gameplay and abundance of moments that tug at your heartstrings. Also, the influence of these franchises is seen in not just the countless imitators that have tried to replicate their success, but also their own sequels in their respective franchises. Andromeda and Fallout 76 both failed to capture the same magic as their predecessors did, and these franchises have had such a significant impact on the action RPG genre because they're not simply just games, they are immersive experiences. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe and smash the bell button, and I'll see you next time. Take care.